Hello, everyone. We are back with another episode of Pass the Mic. Today, we are joined here with Justis. Hello.
Oh, mitakipi, Justis Brokenrope, Bde O. My name's Justis Brokenrope. I greeted you in Dakota, which is the language of the land I'm on, one of my tribe's languages, and yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So a little bit about how I found Justis. Of course, you know me, I'm digging all the time to find the best Indigenous rock music, and I came across your page. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, so I've always been a record collector, and well, not always, but since I was a teenager, and I've been DJing for a while. And then at a certain point, I started to find Indigenous records, and kind of didn't think about it too much. And then over the years, kept finding more and more, and ones that particularly interested me. And kind of realized this music wasn't documented and it wasn't accessible for a lot of folks. And some of it could be really rare sometimes. And so uh, I would say, really, over the last 3 years, decided it was worthwhile to archive this music and to upload it, digitize it, and give it kind of a platform and make it accessible, especially for the native communities that they come from. And so I'm primarily focused on American Indian kind of rock, folk, and country music from usually the 60s to 80s. And a lot of those records, there can only be a couple hundred copies of, or they never made it off. We have reservation systems here in the United States. Canada has First Nation kind of reserves. And so sometimes those records never made it out of those communities. And some of those artists aren't with us anymore in certain ways. So kind of the goal was to just, get these records uploaded and digitized and available to be heard by their communities. And then, yeah, also with that, I've started making radio shows, and I'll DJ around town and kind of wherever I get asked to with them. And then, yeah, ideally at some point, when the finances kind of straighten out, start trying to reissue some of these records, make them available again. But yeah, the project is called WAH-TEH-CHUH Records. I just kind of blew through all that without actually saying the name of it. So
The best for last, right?
yeah.
Is there a specific like meaning or symbology behind the name, or how you decided to choose the name at all?
The name, I'm Sičháŋģu Lakota, and of European descent. So WAH-TEH-CHUH is a word in our language that means kind of leftovers. It's like the food you take home after a big feast or gathering. And so I always like that word. And then I just thought it sounded good for something like this, where, these were records that kind of got pushed aside or swept under the rug in a lot of cases. And so to bring them back, give them, life again in certain ways. I don't know. I like the idea of it. And so, yeah, it had a good buzz to me. And yeah, WAH-TEH-CHUH, just, it was good. It sounded good.
Yeah, I like that name. So it has like a nice background to it. And it's like, so you're working on, it's not just like with music, it's also kind of like archiving, and it's also like history and anthropology. And it's like really such an amazing project. Is there like, was this the goal, or like what was your intention? Did you think it was going to be what it is now, or was it sort of like, it's just happened organically in this way?
Yeah, there wasn't really a set goal. It was something where, I sometimes when I get asked about this, I tell people, like, I love rock and roll and I love being Indian. And so the way that they intersect,
Love
like,
it.
to me, that hits the sweet spot. Yeah. And so, um, it was one of those things where Indigenous folks in the United States are highly underrepresented in popular culture, like mainstream kind of anything. You don't see, and that's changing. Like, there is more media now than, say, when my parents were watching TV or listening to music. But with that, that's something where I would start to see these records and I'd be like, oh man, these guys look badass. Like, where are they from? Or like, what's their deal? And then I'd listen to it and I'd go, this music is like just so good. And like it's as good as contemporary bands that were much more popular. And obviously it's because they were brown guys making it a lot of the time that they weren't going to have the same platform. And so, you know, I'd find these records and get really excited about them. And like, no, a lot of the times there'd only be like a handful of other people that ever heard of them. And usually they're like older white guy record collectors. And so to me, it was like, oh, this is important that more folks like myself, other indigenous folks hear this. And then also like the communities that these people are from, you know, these are someone's like uncles or grandparents or like aunties or whatever. And so, you know, it was just kind of when I decided like I should start putting these on YouTube. That was kind of the impetus for it, where, you know, I was like, okay, I have the ability to take this like rare record or this thing I found in some part of the country and put it online so that family can hear it again, or that community, that reservation. And so, yeah, at that I was like, okay, well, this could be an actual thing. And it kind of built itself organically in that way, where all of a sudden I started getting asked to do like DJ gigs. And in the past I DJ'd like a lot of punk and kind of you know, more like party oriented music. And then so this was like, oh, they want me to DJ only the native stuff, and they want me to DJ maybe only a native event. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like it kind of had a life of its own in that regard. And so with that, yeah, I was asked to do radio shows for different places. And, you know, I have some other things kind of in the works right now that I won't get into just yet because stuff hasn't been confirmed. But yeah, it kind of grew beyond, I don't know, initially it was just uploading to YouTube and then getting a really good response from that even. But yeah, so I would say organically, didn't really anticipate what it would be now.
So I hear there's like a sprinkle surprise, and we'll be listening out for whatever that thing is that you can't say about yet, but we'll come back to that. So
yeah.
you're like audience, it's more mainly you're looking more at like indigenous people from North America. Do you try to like do any digging for like outside of North America, or is really like your focus for North America?
Right now, yeah, North America. There are, I think there's a handful of things I've found that are from, you know, more further south, or even, yeah, like Central America sometimes. But I think, I don't know, as a North American indigenous person, I feel culturally like we have pan-Indian kind of ideas and elements. And so some of these things feel more in line with like my cultural beliefs and understandings and things. And I also don't feel comfortable talking about like, I mean, I think a lot of indigenous folks across the world, like we have a lot of cultural similarities, obviously, but like I think it's one of those things where I'm always like, I'm gonna stay in my like arena or lane type deal. And so for me, it's like, you know, a Navajo tribe or like person is a lot different than my community and like my Lakota like ways, but then we also have similar things, and we've also dealt with the same effects of colonialism in our part of the world for the last few hundred years. And so some of those things like make more sense for me to talk about and like find music and kind of culturally are very similar. And then so yeah, it's always been like, okay, I'm gonna focus on, you know, mostly United States and Canada, like from where these tribes are from. But yeah, I mean, that doesn't stop me from listening to a lot of things from all over the world and acknowledging, like I have some Maori like music and I've DJ'd that before. And I don't know, like Aboriginal, like Australian country music is really big. So I listen to a lot of that too. But yeah, usually stay around here kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like do what you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And it also means you can dig more and niche more, and you have access to so much more information and space that also hasn't been really represented as well too. So it's like a really great opportunity to kind of like dig more in that aspect, I think too. So like I wonder like what was the initial response? I mean, you're saying like you're indigenous and you like rock music, but like how were other people perceiving it when you first started? Was it like you're saying you started off DJing and then people were asking you to do like more native gigs, but like in general, not just for the people booking, but the people actually coming to watch it? How was the initial response as you started? Has it changed since you started?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, it's really like Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is where I live, Minneapolis, St. Paul. They're two cities really, they're pretty much one big city. They call them the Twin Cities because they're right next to each other. Uh, is unique in the sense that we have a very large urban Native American population. Um, and so there are more opportunities and resources for me here than there would be even in like Chicago or New York
Mhm.
City or something like that, much larger cities. But um, yeah, for anyone who'd be listening, like in the 50s, there was a program called relocation where a lot of indigenous folks were basically pulled off their reservation, promised like work and stability, economic opportunities, housing, by moving to a city. But more or less, it was the federal government trying to pull indigenous folks from their land, so then that land could be more land could be taken. And so Minneapolis was one of those cities where a lot of Native people were brought to in the 50s and 60s. And because of that, it has this really rich history here and like culture. And we have a lot of Native folks from all over the United States that end up here. And so being able to, yeah, kind of like connect with my Native community here and do this sort of thing has been really special and rewarding, and keeps presenting itself with kind of more opportunities. And someone will be like, oh, like you do this thing with like country or rock music. My uncle used to play in this band in like 1992. Like, let me check with him and see if like he knows anyone or if he still like has recordings. And so
Yeah,
yeah, it's just one of those
I
things where I think
see.
it's been able to, yeah, like help people connect on like a family level and kind of like think about like, oh, okay, like maybe people didn't necessarily care about this stuff before, or they did, but it was a really small group. But now it's like, oh, like, we're in an era where a lot of like this kind of music ends up on like Netflix shows and things like that.
Mhm.
And so, I love that, yeah, there are artists now that are maybe getting royalties that they never did before, or that more people are hearing their music. And then in that sense too, when thinking about an audience, like putting these albums on YouTube, the comments section has just been buck wild. Like there's so, I
In a
don't
good
know, you'll
way.
get people who'll be like, yeah, oh yeah, in a great way. And well, and really it can be really heavy too. Like there are folks that they'll be like, oh, my grandma used to like sing this song or play this record while she was cooking, or one of them said like, we used to sing this song in boarding school. And
Mm.
so yeah, like, this is my uncle's band, like I miss him so much, that sort of thing. So it's just been really, that's the whole point of it for me, is like if that music can go back to the people it means the most to, and the community that it's from, that's what we need. And unfortunately, a lot of these records are gate kept by like, I don't know, white record collector people who have, egregious amounts of income to buy some of these things. And so I don't know. I just think like if one of my relatives, like direct relatives and a grandma or like uncle, auntie, like one of those people was in a band or a singer songwriter, I would love to hear it. Like maybe I didn't know because it wasn't talked about, but then all of a sudden that pops up somewhere. Someone's like, oh yeah, like this person you're related to put out a record in 1973. Like you should check it out. It's here.
Mhm.
So I think that's kind of the main goal. And like when I think about an audience, that's what I'm hoping for and want.
That's great. And I appreciate that you're also like focusing in on community, especially like you're speaking about these like European like record diggers basically is how I see it. Definitely, like we have a lot of like for like West African context, so much rich music from the region. And of course this was recorded, whether it's on cassettes or on vinyls, and you can't find it anywhere. But then I go to like vintage stores or like record shops when I'm in Europe, and I'm just like, Oh wow, this is an artist from Gambia. Who is this? I've never even seen this or heard of this. It's just like you wouldn't even know. So it's yeah, it's really beautiful that you make sure people have access to this. And it's also like you can learn so much about the time period as well, I think, from this kind of music,
Yes.
not only just connecting with people, but also learning about the cultural context, the political context from the music. I mean, like you can learn so much just about like Nigerian history from listening to Fela Kuti and like what he was thinking about and things he was going through. Like I think it's also really important to learn more about yourself and your own history from the music too. So yeah, this is also what I'm saying. It's like very like anthropological, even the like this yeah, record label. It's amazing. Yeah. Congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, it was interesting because I finally found one other guy. He's an Ojibwe um man up in Canada, and we connected with each other through social media. And I was like, this is great because I've never met another native person who's like doing this sort of work. I thought I was the only one, and he's up there, and we like, yeah, spent like a couple hours on Zoom just chatting. And similar thing where he's like, yeah, I was at a record swap and this white guy came up to me and was like, look, I like just found this record. And then he was like offering to sell it to him. And it was a recording that had been made at a boarding school. And so it was, you know, really traumatic in these ways, and
Yeah.
very, for anyone listening, that doesn't know, when I say boarding schools, basically those were schools that existed in the 1900s that again, children were pulled out of their homes with their families and communities and brought to Catholic boarding schools where egregious things occurred, and just total genocide of culture and stripping of language and identity. And really within like 2 to 3 generations, like so much damage to our people inflicted. And so, you know, a lot of the artists that I find are of that generation. They experienced that. Um, some of them may have lost their language, or in the 60s with the civil rights movement, were trying to reinvigorate kind of that cultural identity and understanding of themselves. But so, anyways, yeah, like some white guy coming up to him and like bragging about having this record that's, you know, maybe a bunch of kids singing who were kidnapped and trapped at this boarding school. Uh, and it's like, what are you gonna do with that record? Like,
Yeah.
why
Keep
wouldn't
it.
you leave that to a native person to like figure out or like deal with, or I don't know. And like, yeah, just being excited or wanting to profit off of it. You know,
Mm.
that is so much of like white capitalism and materialism, like to a T. But um yeah, so I don't know. For me, it's like I do get kind of worked up about that because I've gotten into like bidding wars, and I work in education. Like I don't have any money. And so like I, you know, I have to like battle with these like weird like white tech guys or retired, I don't know, record
Mm.
guys. And I'm like, what are you gonna do with this record of like these brown kids from Arizona in 1968? Like, what does that mean to you?
What do they say?
Versus like,
They're like, it's just
they
cool.
don't, I mean, yeah, they like the music, or you know, I don't get it. Yeah, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
similar thing too here in the US for like um free jazz and like spiritual jazz for, you know, from like the 60s to 70s. Like, you Sun Ra records go for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And I'm like, how many black people are buying those Sun Ra records? You know, how is that accessible for a lot of like, that's who that music was made for. And then it gets gate kept by these like older white guys at record fairs and record stores and things like that. So I don't know. It's just a very white dominated, like niche kind of thing, but it's really frustrating because it
Yeah.
deters and keeps out people trying to get involved with this financially. You know, it just it's hard to do. And anyways, yeah, I'm going off on a tangent, but it's real. And um, that's kind of what I want to avoid, is like
Hmm.
getting these records back out there so you don't
And
have to
making it
spend three hundred
accessible.
dollars
Yeah.
to buy one.
Hmm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. What could be the solution? Could it be like a library card that you have when you go to the record store and you're like, sorry, you can't have this tech guy. I have this pass, so I have
Yeah.
priority over.
Well, yeah, for me, it's like I've thought about, you know, when it's my time to unload all these records, like I want to give them to a tribal library, like at a
Mm,
college or something like that, where they can be accessible for native folks and you can come and listen to it or check it out. Like I don't want them to be sold to just another buyer or something like that. Like I want them to
mm,
have a life beyond mine and be able to be heard by other folks like me who maybe would have loved to hear that when I was like 16 or 17 years old, you know? But yeah, and making them accessible or like having them carry on for future generations, I think that's kind of the key.
yeah. That would be cool to have like a traveling vinyl library with just like headphones you could just like plug in at like different fairs and events. Just like listen to
Yeah.
music and learn more about it. Yeah. Lots of good work that you're doing. And sorry for the tech bros. They are like an international problem for everyone.
Sure. Yeah.
Sorry.
Just
But yeah,
gentrifying
so
the world. But
uh, capitalism. We're not, I'm not, you think you're ranting. Don't get me started on this topic
no, I know.
specifically.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we've come to the point of the show, the pass the mic element. You've talked a lot about a lot of things that inspired you, about community, etc. Who do you think would benefit from having the space to share about their work? Who should people be listening to? And if they are already listening, who should they listen more of? Albums that have been like released that people overlooked, you know? What would you suggest?
Yeah. So when you brought this up to me, like, you know, I focus a lot on music from the 60s to the 80s and like documenting that. But
Mhm.
there's obviously a ton of contemporary indigenous artists right now. A lot of like rap, a lot of powwow music and things like that. That's always really good. I think for me, the I was talking about this with someone last night, but one of my favorite artists is named Joe Rainey, and he's Ojibwe. I think he lives out in Wisconsin, but he performs in Twin Cities a lot. He put out a record a couple years ago that really just blew my mind, and he's a powwow singer, and yeah, I mean he's got a remarkable voice and knows what he's doing really well. And then he linked up with some other people. And I don't know how to describe his music, but it is just kind of I don't know. He took the aspects of that style that were malleable and then kind of put different beats and like keyboards and a lot of electronic kind of backing. And
Mm.
I have the record here. I should just show it. But
I was like, you look like you were gonna pull the record out, and I was like, nah, he's
well,
not.
yeah,
You're like, yes, I have
yeah.
it.
Like
Oh, sick.
so Joe Rainey, oh, it's kind of mirrored, I guess, probably when
Actually,
it
you
plays.
can see
But
it. It's clear.
um yeah, yeah. So Mní Sóta, I think is how you say it. I don't know Ojibwe. But so that record, I don't know how to describe it, but I would say anyone listening, if they wanted to hear like what I think is one of the best like modern contemporary indigenous artists, like that album just moves me, man. That thing floors me. And just a lot of different sonic representations there. We haven't met in real life. We've corresponded a lot over social media, but I think it's just timing and we're both busy people. And so I always miss his gigs when he's here. And, but one of these days I'll connect with him. But yeah, we've chatted a lot about different things in the city and like music. And he's always sharing a lot of stuff that I'm doing, and I try and do that for him too. But yeah, that record. I think it came out in 2022. Like I still
Oh, it's
listen to it
pretty recent then.
regularly.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, yeah. And I've heard nothing like it before, so
Hmm.
I just love it and applaud it. And then one other one too that she has, I think, a pretty big following, but kind of more on like the indie rock side, but Black Belt Eagle Scout. Um, she she tours quite a bit. I think she's on tour right now with Sleater Kenny or something. Those are kind of the two native artists I think that currently, like, yeah, if I'm just driving around on Spotify or something, I'll throw them on. Versus like, you know, I have all these records piled everywhere.
Mhm.
But yeah, those are the two, Joe Rainey and Black Belt Eagle Scout. So I think if you were to have some indigenous North American indigenous representation on this show, you probably have some good conversations with them.
All right, amazing. We'll also find those links and share it for the viewers to check them out. And I'll try to find those specific albums, those records as well to share. Like hopefully there's digital versions or like a YouTube extended version. People can just give a listen to it. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time and being available to join us on the show. If you had one last message for us before we go, what would you have to share?
Free Palestine. Yeah. I don't
Nice.
have anything else to say right now. That's
Solid.
that should
Absolutely.
yeah.
Thank you so much. Yep, the episode will be up soon. I'll share that link with you. And yeah, have a great day.
Cool. Thank you so much, Revolted Pidamia.
Ciao. Bye.